It's 1970. You walk into a dealership, not to buy a car, but to buy a weapon. 4 wheels, a hood that barely contains the engine beneath it, and enough torque to rearrange your spine. These weren't just cars. They were a cultural declaration, a middle finger to sensibility, a love letter to excess, speed, and raw American ambition. But here's what most people don't know. Not every muscle car from the 1970s was a Chevelle or a Charger. For every car you've heard of, there were dozens built in such tiny numbers that most never survived long enough to make it to a museum. Some were factory mistakes that turned into legends. Some were dealer specials that were never supposed to exist. Some were so powerful the manufacturers themselves were afraid to put them in their own catalogs. Today we're going deep, deeper than any top 10 list has ever gone. We're counting down 30 of the rarest, most jaw-dropping, most historically significant muscle cars of the entire 1970s decade. Cars that collectors would mortgage their homes for. Cars you've probably never heard of. And cars that, if you ever see one in the wild, you stop the car or you get out and you stare. Let's go. 1970 Ford Torino King Cobra. Let's start with one that almost nobody talks about, and that's exactly why it belongs on this list. Ford had a problem in 1970. NASCAR rules were changing, and the aero wars between manufacturers were at an absolute fever pitch. Dodge had the Charger Daytona. Plymouth had the Superbird. Ford needed something to answer back with, something wild, something with a nose cone and a wing, something purpose-built for superspeedway warfare. Enter the Torino King Cobra. Ford built somewhere between 60 and 90 of these prototypes. The exact number is debated by historians, and they were radical. We're talking a unique front end with a pointed snout, a functional rear spoiler, and a relocated front bumper designed entirely around aerodynamic efficiency. Under the hood sat Ford's 429 Super Cobra jet engine. But here's where the story gets tragic and fascinating at the same time. Ford pulled the plug before the King Cobra ever made it to showrooms. NASCAR changed the homologation rules, making the whole program pointless. Most of the prototypes were crushed. A handful survived, and those that did today are priceless pieces of American automotive history. If you find one, you're looking at a car that technically was never supposed to exist. 1971 Plymouth Hemi, Cuda convertible. When people talk about the most valuable muscle cars ever made, this car's name comes up almost every single time. The 1971 Plymouth Cuda was already a beast. The Barracuda platform had been completely redesigned for 1970, giving it that gorgeous E-body shape that still looks aggressive today. But when you spec one with the 426 Hemi engine, and this is where it gets insane, you order it as a convertible. You're in a category all by yourself. Plymouth built exactly 11 Hemi Cuda convertibles in 1971. 11. Total. 7 were built for the domestic market, and 4 were exported to other countries, which makes finding an original American market car even harder. These weren't just rare at the time, they were barely noticed at the time. The muscle car era was winding down, insurance rates were climbing, and buyers were moving away from convertibles. The irony is brutal. Nobody wanted them then. Today, they sell for over $3 million at auction. The Hemi engine itself was a monster, 426 cubic inches, dual 4-barrel carburetors, and a conservatively rated 425 horsepower from the factory. Conservatively, because everyone knew those power numbers were understated to keep insurance companies from having a complete meltdown. These cars are unicorns. If you see one at a car show, you're in the presence of something that is essentially irreplaceable. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6 convertible. Everyone knows the 1970 Chevelle SS 454. It's one of the most celebrated muscle cars of all time. But here's the thing most people gloss over. Not all Chevelles were created equal, and the convertible LS6 version is in a stratosphere all its own. The LS6 engine was Chevy's answer to everything. 454 cubic inches, solid lifter camshaft, 11.25 to 1 compression ratio, and an officially rated 450 horsepower. Most people who drove these things believe the actual output was well north of 500. It was, by many accounts, the most powerful engine ever installed in an American passenger car up to that point. Now take that engine, put it in a convertible Chevelle, add the SS package, and you have something extraordinary. Chevrolet only built around 20 of these LS6 convertibles in 1970. 20 cars with the most powerful engine of the era in an open-top body. The rarity here isn't accidental. Convertibles were already falling out of favor, and the LS6 option was expensive. Most people order the hardtop. Today, an original, documented LS6 Chevelle SS convertible will stop an auction room cold. These are the cars that define the high watermark of the American muscle era. 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. Buick. You wouldn't think of Buick in the same breath as muscle cars, and that's exactly what makes the GSX so fascinating. In 1970, Buick was done being ignored. They took their grand sport platform, added a specific appearance package called GSX, complete with a chin spoiler, rear deck spoiler, and stripes, and then they dropped in the Stage 1 version of their 455 cubic inch engine. This thing made 510 lb-ft of torque. Let that number sink in. 510 pound-feet of torque, in 1970, from a car that most people assumed was for their grandmother. Buick built only 678 GSX cars in 1970, and of those, only 400 received the Stage 1 engine. The cars came in two colors only that first year, Apollo White and Saturn Yellow, because Buick wanted to make sure these things stood out. They absolutely did. The GSX Stage 1 was extensively tested by the major automotive magazines of the era. Car and driver ran one through the quarter mile in under 14 seconds at well over 100 miles per hour. For 1970, that was exceptional. What makes these cars even more special today is the fact that Buick muscle is chronically underappreciated in the collector market, which means if you can find a documented GSX Stage 1, you're sometimes getting a bargain compared to its Chevy or Pontiac counterparts of the same era. 1969/1970 Dodge Charger 500 Street Version. Most people know the Charger Daytona, the one with the nose cone and the wing that stretches toward the stratosphere. But before the Daytona, there was the Charger 500, and its story is just as compelling and far less told. The original 1969 Charger had a beautiful but aerodynamically disastrous recessed rear window and a recessed grille. At high speed on NASCAR superspeedways, these design features created drag and instability that the competition was eating alive. Dodge's solution was elegant and practical: fill in the recessed areas. They contracted out the work to Creative Industries in Michigan, who smoothed the rear window flush with the roofline and redesigned the front end with a flush-mounted grille from the Coronet. The result was the Charger 500, and Dodge needed to build a specific number for NASCAR homologation. They built 392 of them for 1969 and a small additional number for 1970. These were real street cars sold through dealerships with Hemi and 440 engine options available. They weren't purpose-built race cars. They were production vehicles that happened to be built for a very specific competitive reason. Today, the Charger 500 sits in the shadow of the more dramatic Daytona and Superbird, which means they're often overlooked. That won't last forever. These are legitimate pieces of NASCAR history wrapped in a street car package, and their numbers are tiny. 1971 Ford Mustang Boss 351. By 1971, the original Boss 302 and Boss 429 programs were over. Ford had discontinued both of those legendary nameplates. But 1971 brought something new, and in many ways, something that was actually better engineered than what came before. The Boss 351 used Ford's 351 Cleveland engine in high output form, solid lifter camshaft, 4-barrel carburetor, and 330 horsepower on paper. In reality, testers consistently found these cars performing well beyond what those numbers suggested. The Boss 351 was lighter and better balanced than the massive Boss 429, and it ran neck and neck with the best of them at the drag strip. Ford only offered the Boss 351 for a single model year. 1 year. They built 1,806 of them before the model was discontinued entirely, a casualty of tightening emissions regulations and the shifting cultural winds of the early 70s. The 1971 Mustang itself was a controversial car, wider, longer, and heavier than the original, but the Boss 351 made the best possible use of that bigger platform. These cars are increasingly recognized as undervalued gems of the early 70s muscle era. For those who know, a Boss 351 is one of the last real, no-compromise performance Mustangs before Ford spent most of the decade trying to figure out what the Mustang was supposed to be. 1970, Oldsmobile 442W30. Oldsmobile doesn't get nearly enough credit in the muscle car conversation, and the W30 option on the 442 is one of the reasons that's genuinely frustrating. The base 442 was already a serious performance machine, 455 cubic inches, impressive torque figures, and Oldsmobile's reputation for quality build and smooth power delivery. But the W30 package took it somewhere else entirely. Force air induction through functional hood scoops that pulled cool air directly from in front of the grille rather than from the hot engine compartment, a design that was genuinely clever and genuinely effective. Add a hotter camshaft, special heads, and upgraded internals, and you had something that factory rated at 370 horsepower but absolutely embarrassed cars with higher power ratings at the track. The W3442 consistently ran 13 second quarter miles in period testing. For an Oldsmobile, the automotive press practically didn't know how to process this information. Production numbers for the W30 convertible specifically are where the rarity gets serious. Oldsmobile built just 264 W30 convertibles for 1970, and many of those haven't survived intact, which makes finding a numbers-matching example today an event worth marking on your calendar permanently. 1970, AMC Rebel Machine. American Motors Corporation, the scrappy underdog of Detroit, and in 1970, AMC decided to throw everything at the wall with one of the most visually outrageous muscle cars of the entire era. The Rebel Machine was AMC's answer to the horsepower wars, and they made sure you couldn't miss it. The original production plan called for all of them to be painted in red, white, and blue, literally patriotic colors, because subtlety was not part of the brief. Later cars were available in other colors, but the imagery of that original red, white, and blue Rebel Machine is burned into automotive history. Under the hood was AMC's 390 cubic inch V8, producing 340 horsepower with a functional hood scoop that was designed to open under wide open throttle conditions, ram air style. The suspension was tuned specifically for the machine, stiffer than anything else in AMC's lineup. AMC only built around 2,326 of these cars. For a brand fighting for its survival against the Big Three, that was actually a significant commitment of resources. Today, the Rebel Machine is recognized as one of the most distinctive and collectible AMC products ever made, while to look at, genuinely fast, and completely unique in the market of its time.